The auction. The market stank of ionized dust and boiled synthetics, a combination that burned the nostrils and coated the tongue with metallic bitterness. Kira pulled her recycled atmosphere filter tighter, the ancient fabric scratching against her neck as the crowd pressed in from all sides. Sweat trickled down her spine, pooling uncomfortably in the small of her back despite the station's perpetual chill. Through the haze, a faint shimmer of amber light, like a distant memory trying to surface, caught her attention and then vanished, leaving her disoriented. "Last call for salvage lot 78, announced a bored voice over the crackling public address system. "Final chance to inspect before bidding." Kira hadn't meant to stray into the auction quadrant. She'd only come to Outpost Helion to trade her month's salvage for survival necessities, purified water, protein supplements, maybe a new filter if prices weren't inflated again. But something had pulled her here, and now she couldn't look away. Behind the energy barrier, barely visible through the press of various species, stood a small figure. Not a droid or tech salvage as the lot number would suggest, but a living creature. The crowd parted momentarily, and Kira's breath caught. It was a child, a human girl, perhaps 9 standard years old judging by her height. Her hair hung in matted, dirty strands around a face pinched with exhaustion. The thin shift draped over her small frame was torn at the shoulder and stained with substances Kira didn't want to identify. The girl's arms were marked with a pattern of small, circular bruises, too uniform to be accidental. Restraint marks. Beside the girl, secured with a heavy-duty tether, was something that shouldn't exist. Not here. Not anywhere in the known galaxies for the past 3 centuries. A small dragon. Its scaled body was roughly the size of a large canine, with wings folded tightly against its sides. Its hide, a mottled pattern of granite gray and bronze, was dull and flaking in places. One horn appeared to have been broken and crudely reattached. The creature's eyes were half closed, like it was conserving energy or simply resigned to its fate. Lot 78, the auctioneer continued, human juvenile, approximately 9 standard years. No recorded citizenship classification. Salvage, plus accessory creature, unclassified reptiloid. Starting bid at 50 credits. The crowd murmured. Human children were rare enough to command higher prices in certain markets, but this one came with complications. The dragon was an unknown variable, possibly dangerous, definitely illegal. The bidding would be low. Kira was moving before she realized it, pushing through the crowd toward the auction block. She wasn't sure what drew her most, the illegal sale of a sentient being, the impossibility of a living dragon, or the small gesture the girl made as Kira approached. The child had raised her hand slightly, palm outward, fingers splayed in a specific pattern. It was a greeting Kira hadn't seen in 20 years, not since her grandmother had performed the cultural rituals of a people long believed extinct. The perfect circle, an acknowledgement between members of a lost diaspora. This child knew the signs. 20 credits, someone called from the back. 25, countered a trader, their translucent appendages rippling with interest. The prices were insultingly low. Kira felt sick. 200 credits, she said loudly, earning confused looks and a few mocking laughs. The auctioneer blinked multiple compound eyes in her direction. The bid is already at 25, salvager. 200 credits and exclusive rights to archaeological find 556 by 8, registered under my salvage license, Kira replied, her voice steady despite her racing heart. The find was her safety net, a small cache of pre-collapse technology she'd been saving for desperate times. This qualified. A hushed silence fell over the crowd. Even the most unscrupulous traders respected salvage rights. It was the one law that kept their fragile economy functioning. Documentation, the auctioneer demanded. Kira transmitted her salvage registration. The auctioneer's eyes flickered as they processed the information through their ocular implants. Salvage rights verified. The bid is recognized. The auctioneer seemed unsettled. Do I hear a counteroffer? No one spoke. Archaeological finds were worth more than a skinny human child and an illegal, possibly sick exotic animal. Sold for 200 credits and salvage rights to find 556 by 8 to the human in the gray coat. As Kira approached the auction block, the amber light flickered again at the edge of her vision. This time it was stronger, forming a pattern that reminded her of ancient star charts her grandmother had once drawn in the dirt floor of their shelter. The Dragon's Path, she had called it. The memory vanished as quickly as it had surfaced, but something deep inside Kira stirred, a recognition she couldn't quite place, like a song heard in a dream. The Guardian's Promise. The transaction was completed with unsettling efficiency. Credits transferred, salvage rights reassigned, ownership documents generated. The barrier was lowered, and suddenly Kira was standing before the girl and the dragon. Up close, the child looked even worse, hollow cheeks, eyes too large for her face, but sharp with intelligence. Official documentation for Lot 78, said the auctioneer's assistant, handing Kira a battered data pad. The screen flickered to life, displaying an image that made Kira freeze. It wasn't a standard identification image or ownership certificate. It was much older, a fragment of ancient artwork showing a human child standing protectively beside a dragon. The image was clearly thousands of years old, the style reminiscent of pre-collapse Earth art. Beneath it was a title in archaic script, The Guardian's Promise. The similarities to the girl and dragon before her were uncanny. The same stance, the same protective posture of the child toward the dragon. It was as if history was repeating itself, or perhaps had never really ended. System glitch, muttered the assistant, snatching back the pad and resetting it. Here's your official documentation. The new title was absurd and automatically generated, Abandoned Dragon and Human Accessory, Lot 78. But something about the original image resonated with Kira, like the amber light that kept appearing at the edges of her vision. Follow me, Kira said to the girl, her voice low. Don't speak until we're clear of this section. The girl nodded once, her hand automatically going to the dragon's neck. The creature stirred, its movement sluggish but deliberate as it rose to follow them. The crowd parted, no one wanting to get too close to the illegal reptiloid. She'll be mining plutonium by the end of the week, someone muttered as they passed. Waste of credits, another replied. Dragon will be dead by morning. Kira guided them through the maze of the outpost, taking less traveled corridors toward her docked salvage vessel. The dragon moved with surprising grace despite its obvious exhaustion, and she noticed how it stayed close to the girl, not because of the tether, but by choice. Her ship, the Wanderer's Rest, was a battered but reliable salvage hauler. As they approached the airlock, Kira felt the weight of what she'd just done. She'd traded away her retirement fund for a child and a creature that shouldn't exist. Once inside and sealed from prying eyes, the girl finally spoke. My name is Lyra, she said, her voice hoarse but steady. This is Ember. She gestured to the dragon, who had curled up on the floor but kept his head raised, watching Kira with intelligent golden eyes. I'm Kira. She knelt down to be at eye level with both of them. Are you hurt? Either of you? Lyra shook her head. Not badly. They didn't understand what Ember was. They thought he was just an exotic pet. It saved us from worse treatment. Kira examined the dragon more closely. Up close, she could see that what she'd taken for illness was actually something else. The dull scales were shedding, revealing brighter ones beneath. The broken horn was beginning to regenerate. This wasn't a dying creature, it was transforming. Lyra, Kira said carefully, how do you know the old signs? The greeting you gave me? The girl's eyes widened. You recognized it? Grandmother said most of our people were gone, scattered across the galaxy after the Sundering. She taught me the old ways before she died. The Sundering. Kira's breath caught. Her own grandmother had spoken of it, the great diaspora that scattered the Guardian families across space when Earth fell to the corporate war machines centuries ago. You're Terran, Lyra continued, but not just any Terran. You're from the bloodline families, aren't you? The ones who remember. Kira nodded slowly. My grandmother was Elena Thorne, of the House of Stars. Lyra's eyes lit up with recognition. House of Stars. Grandmother told me stories. Your family were the chroniclers, the ones who kept the old knowledge alive. She said if I ever found one of your line, they would help me complete the awakening. Awakening? Instead of answering, Lyra placed her hand on Ember's head. The dragon's eyes began to glow with a soft inner light, and suddenly the amber shimmer Kira had been seeing crystallized into something solid and visible. Ancient symbols hung in the air around them, star charts, mathematical equations, and what looked like genetic codes. All of it centered on the dragon. The dragons aren't extinct, Lyra whispered. They're sleeping. Waiting for the right moment to return. And that moment is now. The awakening. The holographic display that surrounded them pulsed with ancient power, and Kira felt something deep in her DNA respond, memories that weren't her own, knowledge passed down through generations of her bloodline. This is why they scattered us, she breathed, understanding flooding through her. The corporations didn't just want Earth's resources. They wanted to prevent this. Lyra nodded gravely. The dragons were humanity's partners once, before the Great Forgetting. Together, we explored the stars, built wonders that made the current galactic empires look like children playing with toys. But power corrupts, and the corporate dynasties feared what free humans and dragons could accomplish together. Ember shifted, and the symbols rearranged themselves into what looked like a galaxy-wide map. Dozens of points pulsed with soft light across the spiral arms. Sleeping dragons, Lyra explained. Hidden away for centuries, waiting for the signal to wake. Ember was supposed to be the key, but he was captured before he could complete his transformation. And now? Now we have you. Lyra's young face was serious beyond her years. The House of Stars kept the awakening codes. Your grandmother didn't just tell you stories, did she? She taught you the deep songs, the mathematical harmonies that resonate with draconic consciousness. Kira's hand went instinctively to the pendant hidden beneath her shirt, a crystalline fragment her grandmother had given her, supposedly just a family heirloom. But now, in the presence of the ancient display, it was beginning to hum with sympathetic vibration. I thought they were just lullabies, Kira whispered. Everything the Guardians preserved had purpose, Lyra said. Sing them now. Help Ember complete what was started. Kira hesitated. She was a salvager, not some mystical guardian from ancient legend. But looking at the exhausted dragon and the brave child who had somehow survived horrors unimaginable, she knew she couldn't turn away. She began to hum, then sing, a melody her grandmother had taught her about stars dancing in the void. The crystalline pendant grew warm against her chest, and Ember's eyes brightened. The dragon's transformation accelerated. His dull scales fell away like old skin, revealing hide that shimmered like captured starlight. His broken horn regenerated completely, and when he spread his wings, they spanned nearly the width of the cargo bay. But it was his eyes that changed most dramatically, they now held an intelligence that was ancient and vast. When Ember spoke, his voice resonated not just in the air but directly in their minds. The long sleep ends, he said, and his words carried harmonics that made the ship's hull vibrate. The children of Terra and the children of Flame are reunited at last. The holographic map expanded, and Kira could see that several of the sleeping dragon sites were beginning to pulse more rapidly. They're waking up, Lyra said with wonder. All across the galaxy, dragons are remembering themselves. But even as hope filled Kira's heart, warning alarms began blaring from the ship's communication system. She rushed to the console and her blood ran cold as she read the incoming messages. Corporate fleets are mobilizing, she said. The Syndicate, the Hegemony, even the Free Traders Alliance. They're all moving toward the awakening sites. They were prepared for this day, Ember said grimly. They have waited centuries to ensure no dragon could ever again challenge their control of the galaxy. What do we do? Kira asked. We're just one ship, one dragon. How can we fight entire fleets? Lyra smiled, and for the first time since Kira had met her, the child looked truly hopeful. We don't fight them alone. We wake the others first. She gestured to the map, where the nearest dragon site pulsed just 3 systems away. The Guardian at Kepler Station has been waiting for Ember's call. If we can reach her before the corporations do. Her. The Great Mother, Ember explained. She who dreams the deep dreams and holds the memory of all dragons. With her awakened, the others will follow, but the corporations know this. They will throw everything they have at Kepler Station. Kira looked at the star charts, calculating jump distances and fuel consumption. It would be close, but the Wanderer's Rest could make the journey. Then we go, she decided. But we'll need help. I know some people, other salvagers, free traders who don't love the corporate stranglehold on the galaxy. It's time to call in some favors. As she began transmitting coded messages to contacts across the sector, Kira realized that her simple life as a salvager was over. She was now part of something much larger, an awakening that would either restore balance to the galaxy or be crushed forever beneath corporate boot heels. The dragon's path had claimed her, just as her grandmother had always said it would. The battle for Kepler Station. The journey to Kepler Station took 18 hours through hyperspace, but when they emerged, Kira's heart sank. The corporate fleets had arrived first. 3 massive battle groups hung in formation around the ancient research station, syndicate dreadnoughts bristling with plasma cannons, hegemony carriers launching fighter squadrons, and free traders alliance cruisers jamming all communications. The station itself was dark, its shields flickering under sustained bombardment. We're too late, Kira whispered. No, Ember said, his mental voice steady despite the overwhelming odds. She still sleeps, but barely. I can feel her dreams stirring. How can you be sure? Lyra pointed to the tactical display. Look at their formation. They're not attacking to destroy, they're trying to contain something. If the Great Mother had awakened, nothing could hold her. As if summoned by her words, Kira's communication console lit up with incoming messages. Her calls for help had been answered. Dozens of salvage ships, independent traders, and colonial defense forces were dropping out of hyperspace at the system's edge. Kira, this is Captain Santos on the merchant vessel Deep Current, came a familiar voice. We got your message. What's the situation? Marcus. Kira had worked with Santos before, he was a good man who'd grown tired of corporate exploitation. We need to get to that station. There's something there that could change everything. I see 3 corporate battle fleets between us and there. My cargo hauler has decent shields, but we're not exactly equipped for this kind of fight. Tell them the truth, Ember advised. They deserve to know what they're fighting for. Kira took a deep breath and opened a fleet-wide channel. All ships, this is Kira aboard the Wanderer's Rest. I know most of you came here because you trust me, but I need to tell you what's really at stake. She told them everything, about the dragons, the ancient partnership between humans and the great creatures, and how the corporations had spent centuries ensuring it could never be restored. She told them about Ember and the Great Mother sleeping at Kepler Station. When she finished, there was a long silence across the communication channels. So let me get this straight, came a gruff voice from a mining ship. We're going up against 3 fleets to wake up a dragon. Not just any dragon, Lyra interjected, her young voice carrying clearly across the channel. The mother of all dragons. The one who remembers when humans and dragons stood as equals among the stars. And you think that's worth dying for? Another captain asked. This time it was Ember who answered, his mental voice somehow reaching every ship in their ragtag fleet. You have spent your lives scraping for survival while others control the wealth of worlds. You have watched your children sold into corporate bondage while the elite live in luxury. Is that worth dying for? Or would you rather die fighting for the chance that your children might live free? The silence that followed was different, charged with possibility and determination. Well, Captain Santos said finally, "I didn't come all this way to turn back now. How do we do this?" The plan was desperate but simple. The larger ships would create a distraction, drawing the corporate fleets away from the station while Kira's smaller vessels slipped through their lines. Once aboard Kepler station, they would find the Great Mother and help her complete her awakening. It almost worked. They made it past the outer perimeter and were approaching the station's docking bay when a Syndicate patrol cruiser spotted them. Warning shots lanced across their bow, quickly followed by the real thing. The Wanderer's rest shuddered under the impact, her shields failing rapidly. "Hold on!" Kira shouted, diving toward the station's surface in a desperate evasive maneuver. Behind them, the corporate ships were closing fast. They crashed more than landed, the ship's hull cracking as it scraped across the station's docking platform. But they were alive, and more importantly, they were inside. "The Great Mother's chamber is deep in the station's core," Lyra said, consulting a map that had appeared in her mind, more of the inherited knowledge her grandmother had passed down. "But the corporations will be coming after us." They ran through corridors that hadn't seen human footsteps in decades, Ember's glowing form lighting their way. Behind them, the sound of cutting torches told them their pursuers were breaking through the outer airlocks. The chamber they found at the station's heart took Kira's breath away. It was vast, its walls covered in the same ancient star charts they'd seen in the holographic display. And at the center, curled in a pool of liquid starlight, lay the Great Mother. She was magnificent, easily 10 times Ember's size, her scales shifting through every color in the spectrum as she dreamed. But she was fading, her light growing dimmer with each passing moment. "She has waited too long," Ember said sadly. "The awakening should have come centuries ago." "Then we wake her now," Kira said fiercely. She pulled out her grandmother's pendant and began to sing, not just the lullabies this time, but the deeper songs, the ones that resonated with the fundamental frequencies of life itself. Lyra joined her voice to Kira's, and Ember added his own harmonic resonance. The chamber filled with sound and light as the ancient awakening protocol finally began. The Great Mother's eyes opened, and in them Kira saw the accumulated wisdom of millennia. When she spoke, her voice was like the birth of stars. "My children," she said, and her words carried to every corner of the galaxy. "The time of sleeping is ended. Rise now, and remember what we once were." Across space, ancient forms stirred in hidden chambers. Dragons began to wake, and with them, the balance of power in the galaxy shifted forever. The new dawn. The awakening of the Great Mother sent shockwaves across the galaxy, not just metaphorically, but literally. Ancient technologies long dormant began to hum with power, and on worlds where dragons had once lived, crystalline formations that had been dismissed as natural phenomena revealed themselves to be sophisticated communication networks. Within hours, the corporate fleets found themselves facing an entirely new reality. Dragons emerged from hidden sanctuaries, their human partners, descendants of the scattered guardian families, standing beside them. These weren't the scattered refugees the corporations had spent centuries hunting. These were the inheritors of humanity's greatest alliance, and they remembered their strength. At Kepler station, Kira watched in awe as the Great Mother rose from her resting place. The liquid starlight that had surrounded her flowed upward, forming patterns in the air that spoke of joy and reunion. "The children have called us home," the Great Mother said, her voice now reaching every awakened dragon across the galaxy. "Let us remember our purpose." Corporate reinforcements arrived at the system within days, but they found something unprecedented waiting for them. The ragtag fleet of salvagers and independent traders had been joined by dozens of other ships, not warships, but vessels that pulsed with the same organic beauty that characterized draconic technology. Captain Santos, still aboard his merchant vessel, opened a channel to the corporate fleet commanders. "This is Captain Marcus Santos, speaking for the free peoples of this galaxy. You are ordered to withdraw from this system immediately." The response was predictable, arrogant laughter followed by threats. The corporate commanders had ruled through fear and superior firepower for so long that they couldn't conceive of any other reality. That changed quickly. The dragons didn't attack the corporate fleets directly. Instead, they did something far more devastating: they began to sing. The harmonic frequencies they produced resonated with the quantum foundations of matter itself. Corporate weapons systems simply stopped working. Ship engines powered down. Communication networks fell silent. All across the galaxy, the technological advantage that had allowed the corporations to dominate for centuries began to crumble. But the dragon's song carried another message as well. On corporate-controlled worlds, it reached the enslaved populations, the miners, the factory workers, the debt prisoners who had been ground down by centuries of oppression. And in that song, they heard something they had almost forgotten: hope. Revolutions erupted on 100 worlds simultaneously. Corporate overseers found their authority challenged not by violence, but by the simple refusal of people to continue accepting their chains. The dragons had given humanity something more powerful than weapons: they had given them back their dignity. Months later, Kira stood on the observation deck of the newly established Guardian Station, watching as construction ships worked alongside dragons to build something the galaxy hadn't seen in centuries: a truly collaborative civilization. Lyra, now wearing the ceremonial robes of a young guardian, approached carrying a data pad with the day's reports. "The Syndicate has agreed to recognize the sovereignty of the Dragon Worlds," she said. "The hegemony is still holding out, but 3 more of their core systems have declared independence this week. And the Free Traders Alliance? They're adapting better than expected. Turns out that when you remove the corporate stranglehold on trade routes, there's plenty of profit to go around for everyone." Ember, now grown to his full adult size, landed gracefully on the platform beside them. "The Great Mother wishes to speak with you," he said to Kira. They found her in the new council chamber, where representatives from across the galaxy gather to forge a new kind of interstellar cooperation. Dragons and humans worked side by side, but also Zephyrians, crystalline entities, and dozens of other species that had been marginalized under corporate rule. "You have fulfilled the Guardian's promise," the Great Mother said to Kira as she approached. "The ancient partnership is restored, but more than that, it has evolved. We are no longer just humans and dragons. We are a true galactic community." "What happens now?" Kira asked. "Now we explore," came the reply, and in her ancient eyes Kira saw the reflection of distant stars. "The galaxy is vast, and we have only begun to understand its mysteries. There are other threats beyond the corporate oligarchies, ancient dangers that have slumbered as long as we have. But together, as we always should have been, we can face anything." Kira nodded, understanding. Her days as a simple salvager were long behind her, but in truth, she was still doing the same job, finding treasures in forgotten places and bringing them back to light. The difference was that now she was helping to salvage an entire civilization. As she watched dragons and humans working together to repair the damaged station, she thought of her grandmother and the stories that had seemed like mere fantasy. Elena Thorne had been right about the dragon's path: it did claim those who walked it. But the destination, Kira realized, was worth any price. The age of corporate domination was ending. The time of the Guardians had begun anew. In the depths of space, ancient evils stirred, drawn by the return of the light. New adventures awaited, new challenges to face. But for the first time in centuries, humanity and its allies would face them not as scattered refugees, but as partners in the greatest alliance the galaxy had ever known. The little girl who had been sold for 2 credits and a salvage claim had become the key that unlocked humanity's destiny. And the salvager who had bought her freedom had found something far more valuable than any archaeological treasure: she had found her place in the vast tapestry of the stars. The end.